could have found somebody better than me to interview.
Oh, no, believe me. You've written a book, and we'll chat about that just now. So there's a lot of things that I want to ask you. And, basically, what I want to find out is what makes you tick as a person, more so than just the conservation.
Yeah, I mean, what makes me tick? Look, I feel I'm very fortunate to be working in wildlife, but I'm still learning every day, you know. So it sounds like maybe we know everything, but we don't, Every day there's new challenges. COVID has been a new challenge, for example.
Yes.
And, different poaching methods or different things to stop poaching are evolving all the time, So, yeah, things make me tick like people. I suppose, this is a people's war, just about as much as rhinos are being, it's people that are causing it, and it's people that we need to convince not to poach. So, I think I'm probably good with people, although I have got animal skills. And I wish I had the other roles. William works more with animals, and I work more with people. But
yes.
I would love to be working with and touching animals every day, but it doesn't work like that because our work takes us to a lot of other things that are surrounding wildlife.
Yes.
And not actually handling animals every day, although we are very close to it.
Because I see that you are a man that wears many hats. So
yeah,
like you still have your things with Amakhala, but you also the Project Rhino KZN ambassador. I see you're a speaker and Rhino art manager. So just tell me a little bit about all these different roles that you're playing and how does it all fit together? How do you fit everything in?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's why they say I'm not very good at anything, because we do too much. Yeah, I just think it's very interesting to have a variety, when some things work and some things don't work, and some things you don't like to get to, but you have to get to, and other things you enjoy doing, Tomorrow, for example, I'm traveling to a wilderness area and have a community meeting, but I'm taking food up for people through the Feeding the Wildlife Community Scheme that we're all involved with, Kingsley and Joe Peterson and Carl Abbott, and we have a great team, but I also have challenges because I have to get them to vote for a wilderness area and not to go back to their old wicked ways. So those are the challenges, but I look forward to it because I've been preparing these people for about a year or two now, and then in the afternoon, we're going to see the site where my good friend Bayes Kutsia got killed by an elephant. So very emotional in one aspect, but in other aspects quite rewarding because we're putting up a statue for the amount of work that he did there. And again, it's proactive, it's not just getting up and going to work and going home at 5 o'clock again. Yeah, and then the following week we're dehorning rhinos in the Kalahari. So, and then obviously we educate the youth, but at the moment, due to COVID, that's all closed down. So education is obviously the key to the future, and I think it's very important to nurture people when they're very young, and to show them how important our heritage is, to show them that animals have a big role to play, and we do that through the means of, and it was started by Kingsley Holgate a few years ago, also by accident. Most of these good things do, and it's kind of evolved into chasing on 1 million people or 1 million children, throughout the world, actually. So, I've got more than halfway myself. So very proud to be able to add value. I don't think there is another scheme in the world that's achieved that,
So amazing.
It's very rewarding.
Absolutely. And because I saw that between you and Kingsley, you aim to reach out to 1 million community children, How does that process work? Is it engaging? Is it through the Rhino Art Project? Is it through Project Rhino? How does the whole awareness and education thing fit together?
Yeah, it basically works through collaboration. My great friend Dave Patel is just one small cog in the whole thing, or one big cog. Yeah, great people like Wayne and Nikki have come on board. When they were riding around South Africa, they added Ivan Krobler doing in the Eastern and Western Cape now. We have people in Mpumalanga. So we all work together by just doing small little things. The bulk of it comes from a Rhino rig that we have in KwaZulu-Natal, and it goes from school to school, doing 3 schools a day, probably about 1,500 children on average per day.
Wow.
And we book appointments, and we go along and we speak to the teacher and ask them and get a slot at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and about 12 o'clock. Go along with the music system, sometimes with Bagasi and Maklinga, a band, a Zulu band. And it's almost like a roadshow where we preach the gospel of conservation, just tell the children, all about it. And we leave them with a piece of paper to be creative and to give us a solution, what they think the solution might be to the poaching problem or to our rhinos in the future. And not only rhinos now, it's evolved into elephants and pangolins, and at the moment, ground hornbills, wild dogs. I've been in my program in the DRC, Congo, started with gorillas as well, and in Kingsley with elephants in Africa, in the forest elephants. So it's a simple program. It's not rocket science, but it has a very big reach, and it's fairly reasonable. We call it $1 or 12 Rand. It used to be, but now it's gone up a bit to reach one child.
That's amazing. And in terms of the feedback that you've got from the kids, from the schools, how has it been received? Have these children come up with some ideas that you thought, oh, okay, I haven't thought of that? Or is it very new to them still, the whole concept of conservation and preserving these iconic animals for the future generations?
Yeah, a good question, Sharon. We call part of that question, you sound almost like a donor that wants a report, we call it theories of change. And people say, well, why must I give you $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever? And they want why we were doing it. There's no point in going if there's no feedback. So we call that theories of change, TOC. So we have to be audited, in other words, to see what difference we're making. So a theory is basically you get to a school and you ask the teacher or the child, do you know what a rhino is? And they say yes. What is a rhino's horn made of? Keratin. Why are they taking rhinos? Because they're selling their horns in the East. So all those things are actually awareness.
Yes.
Because if you got to the school and you said, what is a rhino? No, I don't know. Or no, we don't know what a horn is made of. It's made of ivory, for instance. And we teach them that horns grow back, Yes. Ivory doesn't. So that's all education.
Yes.
And then we take a small step at a time, to how does it build up the economy, and how does the rhino affect the economy? It's just one of the big 5, but how does it make an important thing? And my mentor and educator devised this thing of he says, all of you guys, 500 standing in front of me, have all got a rhino in your house. And they say, how? Never. We don't. How big a rhino? You can never keep it in our house. And he says, yeah, of course, it's in your house. Every night it's with you. And of course, they all look around at each other and they think that this guy's weird and mad. But then he puts out a 10 Rand note. And he said, what is this? He says, no, it's a 10 Rand. He said, but what do you buy your bread with every day to go to school? No, 10 Rand. And they said, but what is on the 10 Rand? Ah, okay, it's a rhino. So he said, what happens if there's no rhinos? There's going to be no monetary value left in the country. So, and you can see how simple the economy is coming out and the blood's coming out. And The corruption is coming out. So we have various traits in the pieces of art that come out. Unfortunately, because of South Africa, we are a violent society, so that always comes out in the art in children. Guns also come out. Patriotism is a big one, which is good news because people are very patriotic. Flags, for example. And then we evolve the pieces of art all the time, and we try and change it so that we give them some ideas. We don't want copy and paste, we want originality. And it's not only about art, it's all about, it's the piece of paper is actually a passport to talk to a child. That's basically what it is. So because we've come along with a structured approach, the teacher then accepts what we are there for, and they say environmental education is very important for them. And it doesn't matter what school. You can go to a very smart school. It can be a very upmarket private school. We are equally accepted as in a poor rural school. The reason why we go to the rural schools is because they're living adjoining to parks. Yes. And the reason why we go to the Lani schools in towns is because their dads and moms have the power to change the country financially.
Absolutely.
So there is a little bit, and I'm talking too much, so you ask me the next question.
No, I love it when people talk when I interview them. It makes my life so much easier.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the actual children and to how they react once they become aware. Do you feel that we will at some point be able to reestablish that emotional connection to the animals, and for people to see animals rather as wildlife economy and something that's contributing to their community rather than just immediate money being paid off by a poacher for information or whatever the case might be?
Yeah, the simple question to that, Sharon, is that every child deserves to see an animal that they're trying to save. And the tragedy is that you'll find that in Addo, for example, the people are living in Addo town or in Kirkwood, and they've probably never seen an elephant. And yet, a guy in Tembe Elephant Park in KwaZulu-Natal, there's a guy called Ernest Robertson who is a fanatical community person. And he said that every single school child in his area has been on his Land Rover and seen elephants.
Wow.
So immediately, that tells you that we have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that how can we expect a 13-year-old or 18-year-old or a 15-year-old to save something that he's never, ever been part of and never seen how beautiful they are and never actually touched or felt the soil that they walk on, in a game viewer, or even if they don't spend a night in a park. And that's what we need to do. And Rhino art is just one of the little things on the way to see those. And without a structured approach, we can't load every single child in Port Elizabeth and Durban and Cape Town and rural areas and just take them to parks. They attempted to do that in Kenya, and we can learn from them in busloads. But we are making a difference by taking we do walks in the parks. We're only taking the leaders at the moment, the leaders that have the best vision or the best messages or the best art. Sometimes it's not the right way to do it because you get people that are worse at art like me and that have animals. So that's what we still got to get right. But if they can all go at some stage, I think that's something the government should actually make a conscientious way of doing it through open days and subsidies and whatever.
I totally agree with you, Grant. And that actually leads me into my next question to you. As a conservationist and somebody that works closely together with a whole lot of organizations through Project Rhino, do you feel that there's enough government muscle behind conservation? and anti-poaching efforts? Because I know what my answer is, but I would like to hear from you.
Yeah, I think, there would never be enough. And I really don't want to point fingers at anybody because, sometimes the government, and the private sector has the ability to make up their minds and change and do things at the spur of the moment. Whereas the government wheels and protocol and tenders and et cetera, take absolute ages. And while animals are dying, their legislation and their wheels are turning slowly. But within the systems, be it Kruger, East Cape Parks, Isambelo, and Northwest Parks, or whatever, there are some incredible people and have no resources or limited resources, and that are doing a fantastic job. And their reward is very small. It's basically a heart exercise. So I don't think that, to answer the first question, part of your question, the government is certainly not doing enough. They think they're prioritizing conservation, but hey, if you need a vote, what is more important, a house or an animal?
Very
so
true. Very true.
Politics plays a massive role, especially coming election year, and they'll speak about conservation and global warming and rhinos and so on with a big heart, but at the end of the day, they weigh down the pecking order, tragically, and unfortunately, that's not going to change pretty soon.
That is actually very unfortunate.
I mean, I've just got my own theories, is to breed more rhinos and put them in community land, and fund them through NGOs.
Yes.
And once they treasure them like they do their cattle, and they are theirs, they're not going to kill them. And they'll never harbor somebody is going to kill them.
Yes.
And we have so much land in South Africa that's not utilized. So that's what I'm really busy with right now, in a lot of ways,
Okay, that's actually a very novel theory and one that I haven't actually heard before. So thank you for touching on that. Because would that tie into basically building the range expansion parks? Is that what we're discussing here as a complete layman?
We've got different words for it. It's range expansion, rewilding, corridors, community development, community property, alliances with land claims, state-private park partnerships. Yeah, but it's really range expansion or rewilding.
So it's basically on a much larger scale than just having sand parks increase their properties or more private parks. It's actually something much bigger than that.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, one of the government mandates is to increase private parks, the national parks in South Africa. Even in Angola, where I've recently been, they've got a huge mandate to increase their green areas, and bring back tourism because of the demise of oil. And it's happening everywhere, even in Saudi. Mm-hmm. I'm actually doing a proposal right now in Saudi for wildlife and greening things. So the world is definitely changing. But in South Africa, we have an enormous amount of land that has gone back to communities, and the communities haven't had the means to be able to run them effectively. And literally 10 years later, we going back with a rewilding project and saying, sign this agreement, this is what the benefits are going to be. And whether it's state land, community land, private land, somebody has to manage it.
Yes.
African parks, for example, peace parks, they all do wonderful work, but they only work with a one-dimensional, big government national park in Africa, but they don't work with multiple small headache parks like, unfortunately, what I have to deal with.
Absolutely. So then obviously, I'm assuming if these community areas, if they are repopulated with rhino and the community members basically own those rhinos, they're going to see those animals as a means of income and protect them accordingly.
Yeah.
I love the fact that more people or more organizations are actually trying to involve the communities around the parks. Because, if we have schools and clinics and access to basic human rights, people are going to be, and jobs, people are going to be less likely to fall prey to a poacher and get a mere pittance in exchange for the life of an animal. But how do we get from where we at now to that situation? And I know this is a very difficult question, but I'm trying to make sense of it in my mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't flick a switch from 29.8 or whatever the unemployment rate is. I've heard that it's nearly doubled in the last year or so. But you're quite right. I mean, if everybody had a job, our problems would be much less. But if we were able to, for example, take the areas that are not working and rewild them or give people opportunities and employment opportunities to work these areas, we'd probably create, let's just look at jobs, another 500,000 jobs.
Wow.
It'll drop the percentage very slightly, but you'll be going in the right direction. At the moment, we're going in the wrong direction.
Yes.
And we have some national parks that are severely challenged. The one we working with a lot in Natal has got a problem. I mean, it's in the media most weeks because it's going the same way as SAA, and a lot of the work, a lot of the budget is going on salaries. So
yes.
They may have they've frozen all the posts. There's no new investment coming in. The tourism thing hasn't really helped.
Yes.
We're not in a great space right now, So something's got to give, and I don't know. In the next few years, we're going through challenging times. Thank goodness, during COVID, rhino poaching has improved because it's taught us that if we lock down all the routes, we can sort out or semi-sort out poaching. But we have bushmeat poaching. I was on the line to Patterson yesterday, and it's bad because Patterson are 90% over, unemployed.
Wow.
It's just, that's close to PE.
Yeah.
I'm working in another park near Vryheid in northern Natal. Terrible. The dog poaching has become totally out of hand. One through starvation, and other through sport, and people are bored.
Yes.
They've been sitting at home. They don't employ, and it's that age group that is so vulnerable between 19 and 29, 30 years old. They may have a tertiary education, but they cannot get work.
Yes.
Some have left school in standard 8, and they can't get manual labor. So they're just hanging around, stealing cattle and, playing cards at the shebeen, where, they can do alien vegetation, for example, or
yes.
clean the road, or, do a craft, or something. Something that'll bring them some hope. And sometimes I think that, they're waiting for, unfortunately, they're waiting for the pension bus to come along. Whereas in Rwanda and DRC and other places, Ghana, where I've been, there's just this, everybody survives because they are making ends meet.
Yes.
Through planting and selling and building and doing whatever. So we have a bit of a problem is that we're breeding the lazy population as well because of grants, child grants and whatever.
Yeah, that is a big problem. It is a huge problem, and one can only hope that these type of community projects such as what you guys are implementing will actually turn that around. Now, my final question that I want to ask you is about your book. Tell me about the book. All right. Saving the Lost Rhinos, the life of a frontline conservationist. And yes, I had to read that title off my list of questions that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me a little bit more about the book? How did it come about? What made you decide to write a book? And what is it all about?
Yeah, Sharon. It's hard to say that, I'm really not saving the lost rhinos. And am I really on the front line? Many other people are giving their life every day. So I'm not on the front line. I'm actually in a comfortable home right now talking to you. But tomorrow I'll be on the front line again. I think, the way of, it's a title that the people in London wanted to sell books with.
Okay.
So saving the lost rhinos means that my brother's saving the last 1,000 rhinos, or 2,000 or 20,000 rhinos. Ian Player was saving the last 467 in Mfolozi in 1961.
Wow.
So we all have a role to play. Wayne Bolton is saving rhinos by going to every park. You're going to be doing that by running constantly for a month. So we're all playing our part, and I just feel that whatever I was doing, I was saving rhinos.
Yes.
Be it a day at a time, a month at a time, a year at a time. And, so the title is a little bit flattering, and I apologize for that.
No need to apologize whatsoever.
And really, when I'm in the front line, conservation has changed. Frontline people are working with a gun. I don't even pack a gun. I have been shot at and all that, but I don't put a burden around my neck by protecting it and all that. Having a license and somebody taking it off me and shooting me.
Yes.
So I have my front line is, last year I was in New York and then Canada and in UK and then Sydney. And so that was my front line, and I had to make ends meet and raise money so that we were able to do all the things that I'm telling you about.
Yes.
And one crazy day I was at a wedding in Port Elizabeth near Krachakama, a friend of mine, Neil Wallace, and I met a crazy guy that had been working in London in the book business. And I said, well, I was inspired to write a book because I'm working in the Congo. And I started writing this thing, putting my memoirs down. And long story short, he said, can I have a look at it? Because I think I may have a market for you.
Wow.
And and that's what he did. And he said, I'll get you a lot of money for it, which partially happened. But, they say you never make money out of books. But it does have and my friend Kingsley Holgate has written 5 books, and he said they're damn expensive business cards.
Indeed.
Yeah. But what it has done, look, and everybody says I'm an author. My wife still says I'm not an author. So I said, well, what, if you write a book, what are you? So
yes.
Maybe I'm a storyteller. Somebody else is the author. And this marriage that I had with a guy called Graham Spencer, who wrote The Elephant Whisperer, who sold hundreds of thousands of copies.
Yes.
And still, after 15 years, is the top 10,000 books on Amazon, and there's 6 million books on Amazon at any one time. So, I became my book started in November, and it was a bestseller by the end of February, before COVID went out.
Awesome.
So, and I'm inspiring with a very small story from all over the world. I mean, I'm getting comments from Sweden, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia, Latin America, Canada, places that I never thought the book would get to.
Wow.
It's on the shelves, and it's just come out in America and a different cover. Same name, different cover. So, and then it was so successful that they just signed my second book, so I'm on my second chapter.
Oh, fantastic. Well done.
Yeah.
But I'm also assuming that writing this book and getting it all over the world is actually opening, hopefully, more fundraising or potential donors and sponsors for your work that you do with conservation.
Yeah, it is I'd hate to tell you what we call in the pub maybe a bit of a false impression or a false sense of, it doesn't make you the fact that you're an author or a well-known conservationist or whatever. You can talk a hind leg of a donkey, but at the end of the day, you have to do the hard yards. So the book has really changed a lot of things, but it hasn't I haven't flicked a switch on and thinking that I'm going to be recognized in the street. It's not like that at all.
Yes.
Except when you go to a book launch, everybody stands in a queue and you're waiting to sign 50 books, and you think, wow, they're actually waiting for me. But at the same time, it's a very humbling thing. You can't rest on the laurels of fame or having a book or being. And I guess I'm not there yet, and I don't see myself. And again, my brother is very good at that. You always have to have time for people, and always have to be humble. And I try and portray that in my book. It's not that I'm doing this; I'm telling a story. And Graham is very good at that. Graham Spence, my ghostwriter.
Yes.
He knows me very well, and he kind of we in daily contact. Everything I do now, where be it elephants, rhinos, people, conflict, permits, I send off to him, and he's bashing out the chapters. My next book is called, again, not my title, and Cruel Planet. So it's a very, very good title because it came out during COVID. And they signed in the middle of COVID, and it's all about wildlife. And I lost two of my best friends in conservation. One tragically by the elephant was Bayers, and another one called Chris Holcroft, who, by the way, saved the elephants at Blaaubosch, and the whole herd there. You would have seen it in the media. Yes. He paid for that whole thing, and
wow.
He was one of my best friends, and I'm still president or chairman of his NGO in America as well. So
amazing.
It was really fun.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to the new book coming out as well.
Yeah, a long time still. It takes about 2 years to get a book done.
I can only imagine. Yes.
Yeah, it takes a year to write it, and then it takes 6 months to do the legal reads and the rechecking, and then another 6 months to market it.
Wow!
So everything is done internationally. It's not even a South African book.
Yes.
It has its rights with Jonathan Ball, obviously in South Africa, distributed all over South Africa, but they only buy the rights from London, and then London then do the foreign language rights throughout the world, be it in Spanish or French or whatever. So it will be in many different languages, different continents, and so on.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's remarkable to know.
It is. I actually never realized it's quite that involved to write a book, because you hear of these people that wrote their books and they self-publish and everything. Turns out it's maybe just not that easy.
No, I didn't go that route. I was very lucky and that's, again, I got to that stage where I found the right person. And, we joke about it. They called the Awkward Authors Club, and it's like, I'm sure you've got your children, and you always think that children are the best in the world and your dog's the best. But other people may not think like that, And,
indeed.
You become an author. Your book is the best, and you're wondering why it's not being sold. So you keep on harassing the poor publisher.
Yes.
And then they say, well, you just joined the Awkward Authors Club. Wind your neck in, shut up, and we're doing the job for you.
My word.
Yeah. So do what you do, and that's conservation.
Yes.
We'll do what we do. So I'll try to advise Wayne because he's got a good story to tell. So.
Yes. No, he's got a fascinating story. Now, My very, very last question, and this is a promise. What and how would you like to see the general public out there really become more involved in conservation as a whole? Not just specifically rhino conservation, because we know if we look after rhinos, we look after conservation as a whole. My passion, for instance, is rhinos. I just love them. I'm obsessed with them. But I can see how my efforts in conservation will help the whole conservation issue, you know? So how would you like to see South Africans get more involved?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sharon. I think, I never forget William saying when he grew up, we only had one park, and that was the park, and that was Kruger Park. We have so many parks now, all over the place. You've got on your doorstep in PE, you've got Addo, which is really world class, and then you've got the Bavians, and you've got all the private parks, the Shamwaris and the Mount Kamdabus and the Amakhalas, Karefas and Kwandwes and everything. So I know they're not affordable, but I would like to see somewhere between all this mix that we have of wild areas, I would like to see a craving of the people from New Brighton or Zwelicha or wherever they are in a township, or in Warmer if they're Lani, or Mill Park, all desperate to get to the bush. And that needs to be indoctrinated, like we want to go to the beach over Christmas. It's there, but it's not big enough yet. And whether we get vouchers or cards, or I know we all don't want to go where it's crowded, but we need to take ownership that we're the last kind of best place in Africa that can take care of our wildlife, and we need to make it affordable to people to be able to go to parks, even if it's open days.
Yes.
So that's one thing I'd like to see, and obviously I would love to see instead of the army, maybe gap years in some sort of conservation area as your credit or your outreach or your giving back. And it can be anything from working in a park to cleaning up your green areas or recycling or whatever. I think there's a hell of a lot that we can all do to make this country better. And obviously the education will come through, slowly but surely, if they put it as part of the curriculum as nature conservation or environmental policies or whatever. It should be part of the curriculum. That is, or global warming or restoration or tree planting, carbon credits, all that needs to come into our lifestyles more and more. So, and I think that if we do all the basic principles, the earth will start responding naturally or better to us, much the same as it has during the lockdown.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I can ramble on all night.
Perfect sense. You're absolutely speaking my language. I love it. I totally agree with you. We definitely need to get youngsters more involved in ecotourism, in cleanups, and get them into the bush. Get them in touch with their souls, with their spirits. Grant, thank you so much. It was fascinating chatting to you. And I do reserve the right for future interviews.
Anytime.
Awesome.
Anytime. Even when we're in the bush, it's cool. I've done a whole lot to America and to Saudi Arabia, even from the bush. And I don't have hyena call on my phone, but I like to tell them that I can hear the hyena calling.
Awesome. Well, maybe we do the next one while you're in the bush.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, good. Well, let me set you free. Thank you so much for chatting. I really appreciate you making the time and the effort to chat to me. And
pleasure.
There'll be many more.